first rule of Fight Club is...
You ever seen a grown man naked?
I will kill you.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Just been both.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Lone Star!
60% of the time, it works. Every time.
That doesn't make sense.
Hello, Mark. So what you been up to for 20 years?
Welcome to another episode of the Hateful Mate Podcast. I'm Declan.
I'm Julian.
And today we're going to be talking about T2 Trainspotting. So T2 is the long-awaited sequel to the smash hit Trainspotting, which was released 20 years ago in 96. The new film takes place 20 years after the last, when Mark returns to Scotland to get back in contact with his friends after the events of the first film. T2 features the same main cast from the first film, the same director, Danny Boyle, the same screenwriter, John Hodge, who based the script on a book by the same author as the book that the first film was based on.
Very loosely, though.
Very loosely, yes. T2, choose life, choose a big screen, choose to rewatch the original instead. What did you think of T2 Trainspotting?
Well, first off, I was wondering how long it would take us to attempt a Scottish accent, and I looked at that. And it's 33 seconds, I think. 33, we made it through. But
No, I did write it into the intro, so we were kind of a bit fucked from the start, really.
we were done.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. It just needed one more smash hit.
Yeah, I'll try not to slip into it too often, because I know I'll do it poorly, and it'll just make... I mean, it's already a shitty podcast. We don't need a shitty Scottish accent thrown in there as well. But, I'm not going to be able to help myself. So.
Oh, it's an urge that she just can't resist. Especially when we have funny accents already.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Well,
yeah.
They're more sad, really. But,
more sad accent. True.
Australian's kind of like the worst one. Anyway,
yeah.
So the movie.
T2.
Yeah, T2. What did you think?
What I think? I think it was a competent sequel. I think they were never going to be able to either one up or match the original, because the original's kind of like a bit of a lightning in a bottle, kind of like a very magical kind of made moment for cinema sort of thing, British cinema in particular. But I think if they're like, okay, we need to do a sequel, or we want to do a sequel to Trainspotting 2, I think they did a very good job in that, and overall I'm glad they came back. I mean, I have reservations, of course, which we'll talk about, but
yeah,
overall I think worthy sequel, worth coming back.
Right. I kind of wish they never made the sequel.
Oh, good. It's good. That's good. We got two.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a good movie. There's some great scenes and some great moments. I kind of think the opposite of what I thought about Ender's Game, and that I think it shouldn't have been a 2-hour movie. I think it probably should have been like a half-hour short film, because I just feel like it was I don't know. It didn't feel like a feature-length film to me, but it lasted as long as one. It's not a bad movie. It's fucking Trainspotting. It's going to be held on this, it's Trainspotting. It's more of a thing to me than bloody Star Wars, right? That's why being slightly disappointed in this movie was so disappointing, because it's fucking Trainspotting.
Yeah.
But at the same time as wishing they probably hadn't done it, I'm glad they did. And I didn't feel like cheated out of $10 for going to see it. So let's talk positives.
Positives? I've got quite a lot. Although I've got my first point that I've got here is kind of like a bit mixed up, and it's saying that I've actually, because in the first Trainspotting film you don't really feel the friendship between any of the characters. You feel like they just do drugs together, and as you know, like in the movie, Renton secretly hates all his friends.
Yeah.
And basically, in the movie, it's kind of a metaphor for his addiction. It's like he has, he has enjoyable times with them, but really they're bad for him.
Yeah.
And that's why he kicks them at the end, like he kicks heroin, essentially. And that was kind of like, so that, in a way, that movie kind of come full circle with a statement about addiction. So it kind of defeats the purpose that he came back and they're much better friends.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I felt like he got on, you could see he was getting on a lot better with Simon, a lot better with Spud.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot has changed. The characters behave very differently in this movie than they did in the original, because, they should. It's 20 years difference.
Exactly, it's aged.
In some ways, I didn't like that, like with Simon because like in the original, all his rants that he goes on are just like brilliant. Like all the little bullshit about like movies and stuff when he's just like talking out his ass. They didn't really have that too much in T2, and that, I mean, again, it is something maybe that you grow out of in 20 years, like not being as much of a pretentious dickhead. I can only hope the same happens to me. But I did miss that quite a bit. You kind of made him a bit of a less interesting character.
Oh, definitely. That's the my one reservation with the depictions, because like I thought Ewan McGregor was brilliant as an aged Renton.
Yes.
I thought Carlisle was really great as an aged Begbie, because they still felt like they were the same people just 20 years on. But the one character, and Spud saying as well, the one character I think didn't feel that for me was, as you said, was Simon.
Yeah,
because he didn't have, what I really liked about him in the first Trainspotting was those rants. He was kind of wannabe suave. That's why I kind of quoted Sean Connery, and him trying to be cool, trying to be suave in this weird way was kind of like endearing. But now he just turned into Mr. Grumpy Man.
I mean, it's kind of showing that he doesn't go by Sick Boy anymore. He's Simon now, and he's also boring. Like he's just
he does plenty of cocaine and extorts people. And he wants to open a strip club.
Yeah,
but pretty boring.
It's weird. He was kind of interesting in what he wanted to do, but at the same time, he had less of a personality. And it's funny because, like in the original, one of his speeches is about personality and how personality is what keeps relationships going, like heroin. But then he kind of lost a lot of his personality in T2.
Part of me wonders how much is it like the actor Johnny Lee Miller's fault for just going over the top all the time, of being really pissed off. Like I get that he's on cocaine, but at the same time, it was unrecognizable as the character people liked.
Yeah, but I mean that could be another thing. Is that you'd think that of all of them to change, it'd probably be Spud, because he was the one that kept doing heroin. And then I guess the change from heroin to cocaine is what changed Sick Boy into Simon and made him really angry. But I don't know if there was any kind of like maybe overacting of being like just too much emphasis on the anger. It's all kind of down to Boyle, and that's obviously what he wanted out of this for whatever reason.
And I was surprised because I thought like every other performance, like even Begbie, who's nuts.
Yeah. Even
Begbie had like the actor, Robert Carlyle, kind of showed this restraint, and same with Ewan McGregor. He kind of like have these scenes where he was just kind of like a normal person for most of the movie, but then once he'd been pushed or something had happened, he had an emotional outburst.
Yeah.
Same with Begbie, and that was good. That was realistic.
Yeah.
Well, I think Simon was just pissed off all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we are still in the positive section.
Yeah, exactly.
I do agree with you.
I'll get into my other problems with the rest of the characters later.
Choose life. Choose Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and hope that someone, somewhere cares.
Missed you, mate.
I missed you too, Spud.
T2 it plays such a homage to the original, probably too much, but it like takes a lot of the surreal elements from the first film. Like for example, in the opening of T2, I guess mild spoilers, like first 10 minutes, when Spud goes to kill himself, and they have that footage of him falling off of the top of that building, and then Mark sliding underneath and catching him, and little things like that. And they've got throughout T2, they've got shots of like there's a lot of projections in this movie. Like they project things onto the side of the car, into that room, like all the mirror things, and all these things obviously don't fit. And taking that from the original, and I liked most of them. Some of them I felt like they were probably trying a bit too hard. And there's so much pressure for them to make this movie. I understand why they were like really trying to make this, interesting. But but some of them worked really well. There was some really interesting cinematography. There was that one point where one of the characters just goes to point to say like, so the camera is on one side of the character, then the other character points to the other side, and the camera just jumps from like behind the character on his right to the left and gets right in front of the like the guy's finger. And it was just little things like that it kind of just like wakes you up really when you see something like that. But it's cool because you don't really see that often, and this is a movie that has the freedom to be able to do that. I mean, it's like when we were talking about La La Land, how it's a musical, so you have the freedom to do all this weird lighting shit and take everyone out, even if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, really.
Trainspotting just happens to be one of those movies.
Yeah, you have the freedom to do that in like a drug movie,
Yes.
essentially. But I agree. Like I thought the cinematography in this one compared to the original was like fantastic. Danny Boyle's obviously been doing it for an entire career now, and so like a lot of those sweeping shots of Edinburgh were were incredible. And I was like, oh shit, it's a beautiful place. Who knew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. Yeah, and so this film as well had a different DP than the last one. The one from the original, like, I don't know a lot about their work. This is kind of just stuff that I've Googled. I haven't really seen much of, the other work by these two cinematographers, but apparently the one used on T2 is known for a bit more of the crazy styles and sweeping movements and Dutch tilts and all that kind of thing, whereas from the original it was more subdued. I kind of felt like they did overdo it in this one, because again, so much pressure, and they're really just trying to make this pop and be interesting and engaging as much as the first one was, but they might have been looking in the wrong place to try and do that.
I don't know. It's okay with me.
I would say most of it I was happy with. I mean, there was some of it I was really happy with. There were some like absolutely amazing shots and the surreal things and the crazy cinematography, and it was just like very interesting. But I did feel like sometimes they were just relying on it a bit too much, maybe, as opposed to making the characters and like, because the original was like just the culture that they kind of set up, and these people and how much they hate their lives and everything that's going on, just that culture that is built just makes it interesting, because there's no real driving force in the original, like pushing the story forward. It's just Mark is there and he's doing whatever, he's taking drugs, some shit happens, right? Whereas in this, there actually is kind of a storyline push that they're kind of heading towards a goal. It's not too strong, but it's definitely more present in this than it was in the last one.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think it wasn't too strong. It's kind of annoying. Like, we'll talk about the ending later on. We're in spoilers, but I wasn't really a fan of like the overall. Some of it, yeah, but like I think it was like a kind of a mishmash of lots of different scenes happening. Yeah, which was good, because that's kind of like what the style of Trainspotting. Yeah. Was. And I could be completely wrong here, and Pulp Fiction came out before Trainspotting, but I saw a similar thing of just showing people living their lives in random kind of sporadic moments that kind of like a bit of a collage that makes a story. Like, yeah. And I think that they to the fact that they didn't attempt to do something too heavily story driven, they did like events, kind of scenes, different things, just showing these people's lives. Yeah, well, I think they captured that style.
It's like straying away from the classical Hollywood storytelling, in that there doesn't need to be, cause and effects and this one thing and the character having this big goal and trying to achieve it and getting through all these things. Sometimes, life's just like in more of like an art film sense from the French New Wave or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it works, like for Trainspotting, it works amazingly. It works great. And then it was pretty similar in T2, although there was an overall kind of driving force. There was like kind of a goal that they were moving towards, but at the same time it was still all over the place, so it still kind of kept that going.
Get that going, which I was happy with. It felt, for me, it was just like, if it didn't have that, it wouldn't have felt like Trainspotting.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been too weird.
Yeah, it would have been too weird, or it would have been too simple. It would have been too straightforward. Yeah. So I was glad it was a bit more complicated as well. But yeah, one of the scenes I really liked was the reunion scene between Renton and Simon. I know we've ragged on Simon's character already, but I thought that scene was just really cool. Like,
yeah, the tension was really, everything in that scene kind of pushed towards that big.
You were waiting for it to happen, and then it wasn't happening, and you're like, "Is it going to happen?"
Yeah, exactly. And no, I really liked the beginning of this movie, like the first. I mean, I liked most of it along the way, and there were some really good scenes, but I did really like even just the opening with Spud, how he throws up. Because when he goes to kill himself, he puts a bag on his head, and he ends up throwing up inside the bag, and Mark has to tear open the. And I'm just thinking of him swimming through the toilet in the original, and I was just like, yeah, this is Trainspotting. We're back, baby.
Or when Spud flung shit all over his girlfriend's family. Yeah. That's what I was like. I like that scene too. I was like, it's a gross out scene, but it's a Trainspotting scene.
Exactly.
So I like that.
Yeah,
and also him falling down down the building, and then like Renton catching him and stuff like that. I wish there was a bit more of that, because in Trainspotting it's kind of like get this whole surreal feel to the film, and like all the time you'd feel like, okay, I'm in reality for most of the time, and then occasionally something just weird happens for no real reason.
Yeah.
But you could understand in that one, because in that particular scene, because Spud probably would have been stoned.
Yeah. I feel two things. So I think that kind of thing in the original, it was done pretty sparingly. And when they did do it, it really like was engaging and interesting.
Whereas, the baby on the roof.
Like the baby on the roof, where you're just like, oh, okay. Or, him falling through the carpet when he takes that hit. Or when he jumps off that wall, lands in like the Spider-Man pose in the Mother Superior's thing, and like, orders the heroin as if it was like, a dinner. All those things, they don't happen very often, and it kind of gives more of a grounded feeling to the film, as well as making those moments stand out more. And again, I kind of think they went a bit too overboard. Like you're saying, there should probably have been more. I think there should probably maybe have been less. But But
I think it's all based around the these people's drug addictions as well. So, and this one, obviously, most of the people apart from Spud had got over the drug addiction. Except there's one bloody scene which I'll talk about a bit later on, and you'll know the one, because it's absurd. It really stuck out to me. But I was saying on the positives, because we're gonna get through these, and then I can rag, because we have some reservations.
Then we can do what we do best.
We can do what we do best.
Shit on people's work.
Exactly right. How dare they try?
Try so hard, and what have we done?
But yeah, Robert Carlyle's performance as Begbie, I loved all of it, like especially his family, the way how complicated that was.
No, I really liked that.
And how he kind of like, even though he at the end he kind of like, I won't go into this before spoilers. He does have an arc. He has an arc.
There is an arc there. I just felt every scene with him in just felt so tense. They utilized him very well, and you could think like that in that 20 years he maybe would have matured more, but he went the other way, and he just like went fucking insane.
Which yes,
he
was always insane.
He was always insane, but this was like
he got worse.
He got worse.
He got way more dangerous.
Yeah. He didn't get more insane, he got more dangerous. And he got more scary. Every time he showed up, you were just like on the edge of your seat. So it was really great.
True. I also loved the when they went to the Orange Lodge for the when they're stealing all the wallets, and they're singing about the Battle of the Boyne. This because they go there basically, and they're because these guys are Scottish, and this is a bit of a political statement, which one of my complaints about the movie, one of my reservations actually, because we can't have a plus without a minus. Yeah. Right, it's magnets. Is that they kind of had these themes, and it had these political, like Trainspotting one was very focused in that it said, which is ironic because we say it was all over the place.
Yeah.
But it was very focused in that it had a point about addiction. Its themes were kind of like they were all elaborated on. By the end of the movie, it was like complete. It said what it wanted to say.
Yeah.
Well, this one it kind of threw out a lot of different things, and this is one of the things, because they're like, okay, how can we make this movie relevant to, to modern times?
Yeah.
Now, like lots of stuff's changed. 20 years. Brexit's happened. The Scottish referendum's happened. Let's make a statement about tension in Britain.
Yeah.
With this scene, which was overall though, I love that scene. Like, it was really funny and made a statement. Like, it was basically all these Orange. So Orange is a Protestant member of like either Scotland or Ireland is an Orangeman, and they're talking about religious, like all the religious background. And that scene was really funny. And then it had a point at the end, and they stole it, and then they used the date of the year of the Battle of the Boyne to steal the cards. I thought that was clever, and it went towards what Simon was trying to accomplish: steal money.
Yeah. Well, I at first thought that was a really stupid scene when it first started, and it was a stupid scene, but I mean, I wasn't really liking it. I was like, this is a bit too like situational comedy, like
it broke into
like an Always Sunny scene kind of thing. Like, it was just it was a bit weird, but then I did end up thinking it was funny, and that would be another big positive about this, is that it was a really fucking funny movie. Like, I laughed a lot more in this than I did in the original. It's not a comedy, but it was really clever. All the beats were hit, and it was a good, making light of shitty situations and a shitty life.
Yeah.
And it was I thought this movie was very funny. So
it captured the dark humor that the original had, I feel. Like,
but it did some more of that. But in this case, like, there was some of the stuff that I figured they kind of went too far on, whereas I think the humor, it all fit. It wasn't distracting. It was very funny, and it just made the movie more entertaining. Because this movie was entertaining. Whatever faults there are in it, it was an entertaining movie.
Yeah, those 2 hours just flew by for me. Like,
it really did.
But I also really liked the first confrontation between Begbie and Renton. Like, these could have been so, like, after 20 years, you want that scene, that reunion scene to pay off.
It's got to be big.
And it paid off so well.
Yeah,
same with Simon. And
that was a really good scene. There are a lot of really good scenes in this.
Danny Boyle still got it in a lot of ways.
Choose looking up old flames, wishing you'd done it all differently.
Do you still take heroin?
No. And choose watching history repeat itself.
Also, one interesting point I wanted to talk to you as well was about that this wasn't a faithful adaptation of, because Irvine Welsh, the author who did Trainspotting, the second book released in 2002, I could be wrong.
I think it was 2002.
Was called Porno, and it was very, like, just it wasn't eventful. I'll say that much. Like, there was a lot of stuff thrown in to make this more, a lot of storylines. There was elements taken from the book. But overall, I'm glad they just didn't do a really faithful adaptation, because I think it would have been very boring and mundane.
Yeah, because I kind of read the synopsis of the book, and it was very, very different.
Yeah, it is, from the original Trainspotting novel. And
I mean, that was also set 10 years after instead of 20 years after, and, completely different kind of build-up.
Yeah, and that story wouldn't have worked because because basically the internet happened, and now because they're talking about in this film they want to try to open up some, like, how do you say, some raunchy kind of businesses. Yeah. Well, in the original book, they just wanted to start this pornography company. Yeah. And, like, no one would care in 2017, like, because it's the internet happened, so lots of people are going online and doing seedy crap. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, wouldn't really be that impactful. And speaking of, like, the whole modernizing it, they did another one of the Choose Life speeches. This one on, the modern times, and I really liked that. Same, it was one of my favorite scenes of the movie. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Just it's because that's what it is. It is Trainspotting, but now, and it's like how when the whole one of the best things about the original was the culture and everything that was happening around then, and so it's like we can't exclude culture from this. It's just it has to be modern, and things aren't as well. There's a very different style. And so it's how do we show that, but do the whole Trainspotting thing and do a whole, make use of Ewan McGregor being like the fucking best. Yeah, and it did all of that. It all came together, and it was very funny, and it was hashtag relevant. Hashtag relevant. He said Snapchat. He did, and they used Snapchat in the movie. When they were filming each other, and I'm like, wow, it's 2017. He is just like me. He knows that he understands us millennials. Yeah, he does. But yeah, that speech was incredible, and that's what I really loved about Renton is that, and Ewan McGregor's performance is that he was not being a normal person majority of the time, but occasionally he would just let loose and like show off his acting chops, and it was really satisfying. That's me for the positives. How about you? I've got one more positive. Ewan McGregor's ass. Yes. Oh yeah. It's like another one of those things that, like, there's a lot of fan service. There's a lot of callbacks. Some good, some nah. But even that was a callback to, like, just him lying naked in the bed with the girl, and I'm just like, oh, it's like the original, and it's 20 years later, and he's still there. But, still the Trainspotting, Yeah, exactly. Same ass, Yeah, so that's a big old tick in my book. Big old tick. 10 out of 10. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to some negatives. You can start. Let's rag. So I said my main problem with the movie was Danny Boyle. He had these themes and scenes weren't in the book, but he's just like, all right, how can I make it relevant? How can I make some kind of statement? Because they're not addicts anymore. I can't make a statement about addiction apart from Spud. Yeah, but I mean, this movie, it's not about addiction. Yeah, it's not about addiction like Trainspotting one was. So what's it going to be about? Exactly. So like, we've got to insert some themes, which I thought were good themes, but like interesting political themes. but just not elaborated on well enough. Like they had this
Yeah.
scene where they go to they scam the European Union for money. Like when they were enjoying that scene and trying to get money off the European Union, they talked about the gentrification of poorer neighborhoods, like in Edinburgh and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. And also they said like how there's one line that Begbie throws out. He's like, "I'm not a smart C-word, C-bomb." Like
It's hard to quote this movie, isn't it?
It is without getting too scummy. But yeah, and it says, but what about the people like me who aren't smart? Was kind of like saying like, because basically there's this whole, if you look up what like gentrification is, there's all these people kind of getting like their jobs kind of shipped off and they got nothing to do, so they're really pissed off, so they vote for Brexit and Trump, and that's very relevant in 2017.
Yeah.
So I thought it was an interesting theme that was very up to the date, but it's kind of just like hinted at. It wasn't elaborated on.
Well, I would say like my biggest problem with the movie, well, I'd say I've got two big ones, but like one of my biggest problems with the movie, and like because up until this point I've been pretty positive about it, and there's some really good scenes, and like the 2 hours that I think should have been half an hour still flew by like crazy. Like I didn't feel bored watching the movie, but my problem, it just kind of like all these things happened, but there was this big central pushing theme in the original, and I just felt that was lacking from this. It felt like an extras kind of thing, like a Trainspotting extras as opposed to a sequel, but it lasted 2 hours of the Trainspotting extras. There were some great things, but it wasn't like, it didn't have that. It's hard to find a word for it.
The razzmatazz.
The razzmatazz. No, it had the razzmatazz. It just had nothing holding it together and pushing it forward. Great scenes don't make a great movie. You need something to hold it all together and push it forward.
I think the reason that that wasn't that thing that was pushing the plot forward.
Spoiler warning for T2 Trainspotting. Skip to 54 minutes 50 seconds to avoid.
Is because that was supposed to be Veronica and the whole scam of going back to Bulgaria. We're spoilers now. We're in spoilers.
Oh yeah, spoilers.
Going back to Bulgaria, and Veronica was she was a shit character. I did not give a fuck about.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if she was, I don't know if she was funny or entertaining or likable, but she's just kind of there. Like,
yeah.
And especially when, like, I mean, she would have worked probably in a different movie when there weren't so much strong characters around. You've got like Spud, very entertaining, like crazy kind of character.
Yeah.
Same with Begbie, and then you got like Renton as well. So you got all these great characters that she kind of got pushed under the rug in that she was too normal almost, like too.
Yeah.
And which is too normal sounds like a weird criticism, but like basically you don't care about her because she just come in and she's hardly elaborated on, and she was meant to be the final point of the movie.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. That's probably, so there's the fact that I didn't really feel like there was anything really holding it together, and it felt more like an extras than a full movie. And regardless of thinking if it should be half an hour or if it should have been a few different episodes, like just a little thing of
like a TV show,
some shit happening, something like that. It didn't feel like a feature film. It just felt as long as a feature film. But the other problem was the ending. So obviously we're in spoilers now. The double cross happens. She steals all the money and fucks off.
Yeah.
Right? That wasn't like, when you think about the ending of the original Trainspotting and that feeling that you got the first time you saw it, as he's walking away with the camera in his face and he's smiling and he's got the money and he's like, choose life.
Yeah. Scottish accent number 2.
Sorry. It's not going to stop here. When that happened, I was just filled with joy. Like, that ending just makes you overwhelmed with emotions and everything kind of comes together. And he's walking off and you feel great. And I didn't, when I first saw it, I didn't see it coming that he was going to do that.
Yeah, same. It was a surprise to me
he
too.
does it, that's crazy. And all this stuff, it all comes together. Even though there's not been a driving, storyline push, still everything comes together and concludes in a really good way. It's left open so you can still think about it, but it was just so...
Yeah,
I think it was a really good ending.
It comes to a conclusion that's satisfying.
Yes, whereas in this... for one, it wasn't a twist, really.
Yeah.
It was because the whole, for half an hour leading up to the ending, you hear, there's an opportunity and then there's a betrayal.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said that, I'm like, oh, okay, well, obviously she's gonna, steal their money.
Yeah.
And then half an hour later, it happened, and that was the big thing, though. It wasn't just that happened and we were all kind of expecting it. That was meant to be the big thing, because afterwards I'm like, okay, so that's happened. I saw that coming. How is everyone going to react to it? You know, how are the people going to deal with it? Like in the first one, you see Begbie like just fucking up that hotel room, and they're all just like devastated, and Mark's walking away, and you hear his thoughts, and you're like, okay, now it's all about him, and you're learning how he's going to deal with what he's just done and all that kind of thing.
But it's basically like it never happened.
Yeah.
in T2. It's almost like all the characters in the movie forgot that an ending happened.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, well, obviously the big part of the ending is how everyone deals with it, and it's and then I'm like, the like Mark's ending, how he like goes home. I don't know if he was going home again to like live at home or something because he's lost all his money or whatever. But that ending, and then he like goes in the room, he plays the song from the first movie, more fan service, and then that ending, where the camera tracks back and the room just keeps going again, another bit of fan service.
I thought that looked like shit. Like,
really?
I'm just gonna say, like, I mean, it was cool that he went. I was really cool they ended. I think they ended with that scene, sort of thing. I mean, it was fan service, but I was like, okay, but like it brought the dance back, I guess.
Yeah.
The weird Renton dance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like when the room started like going down into a hallway, I just thought that looked really. I was like, this is a pretty. Like, all the rest of the special effects in this movie look pretty good. Yeah. And it just stood out to me for some reason.
Well, I'll get back to that special effects thing. I actually didn't mind that bit. But I think that would have been a great ending if the ending had already happened. And that was like an epilogue.
Yeah, true. But if you already had the
ending,
punch.
It just wasn't there. There was no punch. There was no twist. It was just like some stuff happens, and then you get this ending that could be really great and emotional, and it's like grounded in reality, because it's like, yeah, I lost my money, I'm going home, I'm in my room listening to music, that's it. That's fucking life, you know?
Yeah.
Which would be great if there was something to
there was an ending behind
be reacting to and thinking about when that happened.
Yeah, true.
So it's like almost a good ending. I would have been okay with that being the whole reaction thing to the big twist ending if the big twist ending was actually a big twist ending. So I had a problem coming out of the movie feeling disappointed in the ending, and the whole way through just not feeling like anything was holding it together, and it didn't come together at the end, and it just, that's why it doesn't feel like a movie to me. It just feels like a bunch of little short stories, which would be fine if it was a bunch of little short stories instead of a movie. True. That's why I'm disappointed with this movie, even though there's so many things in it that I did like. There are flaws and some boring characters, but it's it's an okay sequel, minus this really huge problem.
Yeah, true, I get that. But at the same time, that's why I think Veronica might should have just not been a part of the betrayal. Like, I think with, like, Spud doing it for his family was an interesting arc.
Yeah.
So I thought if it was just Spud on his own that did it out of, like, complete shock, then it's been like, I could have thought that was that would have been more interesting, because he was half a part of it. He did.
Yeah, and I guess as well, they were trying to make it a twist, like when he kept saying, there's the opportunity and the betrayal, that you would think that's to do with Mark trying to, fuck over Sick Boy, and Sick Boy trying to fuck over Mark.
Yeah.
And so you think it's going to be between those two, but I never did. I never did think it was going to be. I thought it was so obvious. While we're on character flaws, I didn't like Spud's,
became a literary genius.
No, I didn't mind that, because his handwriting was bad, so it was okay. I
thought that was an interesting tense scene with Begbie, though.
Yes.
That scene where he's
I really like that.
Again,
Again,
that was cool.
Anything with Begbie is so tense.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I didn't like the acting
of Spud.
Yeah, I thought it was too silly.
Like, it was pretty silly in the original.
Well, I think the character was silly, but he never made, he just made this face in T2 the whole time, where he, opened his eyes really wide in his mouth, and it was really shocked, but it seemed like he was really overacting, whereas in the original he was just this weird looking crazy
he was really on the side. Like in this one he's a lot more a part of things. Oh, he's not entirely a part of things, but he comes in to do all the construction work for reasons that don't really matter and no one really cares about, I thought that I kept getting taken out of the movie because I look at his face and I'm like, what's he doing? Why does he look like that? But I thought, at the start, I thought that Spud's kind of where he is in 20 years, because obviously he was the one that was most had the biggest problem, biggest addiction. So we all expected Spud to have the worst life.
Yeah.
I think. And the idea that things were starting to go well for him. He got his job, and he got all this stuff. He had his family, and he just got kind of like screwed over and all went downhill from there. I was like, because Spud's kind of like, in the first one, he was a really likable character. And this one, he is, I think, a lot of the time, there's probably a bit too much Spud going over Spudding.
You don't want to over Spud.
don't ever over Spud.
Very bad for you.
But I thought, like, at the start, how they kind of brought him in and established him in the movie, I was like, oh, you feel sorry for him. And, and I suppose that sets up his potential betrayal if it was handled better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if his acting was a bit just toned down, it would have made his character a lot more believable and likable and less silly.
Yeah,
that's just what I thought, so...
Yeah, true, because he was a bit cartoony.
Yeah, that's all. He's just a bit too cartoony.
Yeah, talking about things with no payoff, though, there was 2 scenes in the movie that I had no idea why they were in there, because they just didn't pay off. One, they take the train to the mountain scene where Jimmy in the first one took them, and then they start arguing and they throw absolute hailstones at each other, like metaphorically, like because Simon blames Renton for Jimmy's death.
Yeah.
And Renton taunts Simon about his dead baby.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, and then you can hear in the background this like this tension, this soundtrack just going like basically like building up the tension. And you're like, holy shit! I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh, they're there's gonna be an absolute explosion. There's gonna be a huge consequence out of this scene with the mountain backdrop because the tension's been raised so high and they're absolutely like ready to go at each other's throat.
Yeah.
And then cut next scene, they're fine. What were you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was baffled.
I think they put it in because obviously Tommy took them to that place in the first one, so I was like, well...
Oh, was it Tommy, not Jimmy?
Yeah, it's Tommy.
Oh,
Did you say Jimmy?
Yeah, I think I said Jimmy.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, yeah. So, like, Tommy takes them there in the first one, and this movie it's got more fan service than Rogue One did. This movie is very fucking reliant on the first film.
Yeah,
like when they're even showing shots from the first film, just putting them in because everyone will watch that and be like, damn, that was a good fucking movie.
I know.
It just makes them happy.
I was okay with a few callbacks, but when they were just like basically just showing heaps of scenes from it and being like, remember this?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, it's a bit overboard.
Yeah. But so I'm assuming that's why they went there. They needed to have this conversation to happen for some reason. So that's where they decided to do it. And then is it straight after that where they get high?
Yeah, that's the other scene.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
I know that's literally the other scene I was going to talk about when I said 2 scenes. Was they just shoot up and then like nothing doesn't matter.
Did that actually happen, or is that supposed to be in someone's head? Was that symbolism? Because I'm trying to find some kind of answer because having it actually physically happen and then no mention of it again. It's like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? And he's like, yeah, I've been clean 20 years. Lol. And he just shoots up. Like, what the fuck is happening?
I know,
that was ridiculous, that scene. I was like you. I was waiting for the payoff to happen or the twist in the, it was just in his head or whatever. But nothing. There was just nothing.
Yeah, no, that scene just
you cut both of those things out and suddenly it's a better and shorter movie. So
exactly. And it was just irrelevant because I would have been happy, because they did such a great job with building the tension in that scene, in the mountain scene, but just no emotional payoff whatsoever.
Yeah, no, and I kind of liked that they brought that back and kind of talked about how horrible these things were, but it needed to lead somewhere.
Yeah, it did.
Instead of just happening.
True, and that's it.
Because you think about the scene in the restaurant where Mark does the whole choose life thing, the modern choose life thing. That led to something. He was there with whatever the girl's name was. I keep going to say Melania.
Veronica.
I know that's racist of me. So I just keep thinking that. Yes. So and that kind of led to them getting closer and everything. That scene. You could put in the whole choose life thing and it could be really interesting as well as fit in the movie and have a point, whereas both of these 2 scenes were just standalone retarded.
Yeah.
So,
could have been cut.
It could definitely have been cut.
Choose your future.
Call the police. What shall I say?
Just tell them we're dead. Choose reality TV, slut-shaming, revenge porn. Choose a 0-hour contract, a 2-hour journey to work, and choose the same for your kids, only worse. And smother the pain with an unknown dose of an unknown drug made in somebody's kitchen. And then, take a deep breath.
Alright, so you were saying before that because there is some very interesting, cinematography and stuff, and it was really good. But at the same time, I'm not sure if it looked that great. Now, you remember you saying that you thought it did look really good. You thought it looked like pristine. Whereas I don't know. We saw it like this in an advanced screening, so I don't know if we were just watching a shitty projection. But I noticed a lot of the time there were some like noise issues, like digital noise. Do you know what that is? Like when the white, like when anything's black, the white dots are like appearing, like that color noise.
Right, yeah, makes sense.
I noticed that a lot. Especially the one scene where Begbie's chasing Mark through the streets. There's like 100 different cuts and Dutch tilts, and I didn't like that. But as they were doing that, I felt like some of the shots just didn't match. Like they almost weren't even color corrected. Some of them were really noisy, and then it would go back to being really clear, and then another shot would be noisy. I was completely taken out of everything, and to me that just looked like really horrible, like technically broken. So I don't know if you noticed anything like that.
No, it just went over straight over my head, but I'm not the full-time film student here, so
I don't know.
I'm seeing your experience coming in full here.
And, when you're watching the original Trainspotting, the whole thing has like an aesthetic, and I get that, now it's modern and things don't really, they don't look the same, but it didn't pop in any way. It wasn't memorable, and I felt like some of the things actually just looked, on a technical level, like poor quality. And another thing is that this movie, it was roughly 18 million budget, and the original was 3.5. And it's 20 years. Inflation is a thing, right? And but that it's not that much of a difference. That is a big difference.
Yeah.
But I actually feel like the first looked better than this did.
Ooh.
See, okay, obviously we clash it.
Yeah, we clash it. But I think it's interesting. I think if we were going to put this one to rest, we'd need to get like either 2 DVDs of both movies or 2 Blu-rays, and then put them side by side, and then kind of
that's true.
Because I think I viewed Trainspotting on like a shitty DVD on like my TV that's not super. So I've got I didn't see the original in very good circumstances.
Yeah.
So it's so I don't have like this view of Trainspotting 1 that shows it as it's supposed to be shown. So,
that's true.
And Trainspotting 2 as well, we could have seen it in circumstances that were like maybe there's just projection problems.
Yeah.
But
what
there could be problems. Yeah.
I don't really get how like it would jump from one thing, like if it was a projection issue, how it would jump from one thing to the next, with one of them being bad and the next one not. Which makes me feel like it might be in the final cut. I mean, we'd have to see it again to actually know if that, like, what was going on there. But I also just kind of felt like, because it looked really clean most of the time when it wasn't noisy. It did look really, really clean, but at the same time, it just didn't, like, say in Arrival, right? Arrival looked so smooth and clean and crisp and brilliant. This one looked clean, but it didn't have that smooth feel. So it kind of just made it like there was nothing popping, because there was no aesthetic. It was very clean, but it wasn't smooth and all cool like that. It wasn't gritty like the first one. It just, to me, look-wise, it didn't really have anything memorable. Or the cinematography was great, and the cinematography saved it. But I did feel like, just look-wise, I can see where the money went, but not that much. And I don't really think that it was worth it in the end. But
I think for a British film especially, because I do love a lot of British film, I think they really made the budget go the way, because 18 million isn't huge.
I know it's not huge. I'm just comparing it to the first is all.
Yeah, but I think like in this one they kind of had these scenes that they just didn't have the money to be able to do, like sweeping shots of Edinburgh, like the whole chase scene where they're kind of showing off the whole city, and so I think in those scenes they kind of showed it off, but I think in the rest of it was just pretty straightforward character scenes.
Yeah, no, I guess I can see the money going into a few like set pieces and everything. I guess I'm just kind of thinking too much of it on the base of how it looked, in which that I don't really know where the money went. But I guess it was more of a spectacle, this one, as opposed to the last one. So yeah.
True, and I think it was very because most British films are because they don't have the kind of Hollywood industry. They're usually done on a very low budget. Usually they're like there's another Danny Boyle film is 28 Days Later. They're kind of movies like that, which are like they don't have this huge budget behind them because it's just not the same industry.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very big British movie in terms of like in terms of budget and stuff like that. So it was interesting to see because I'm so used to English films being indie or low budget.
Yeah.
That like seeing something like this was interesting. But
okay, it's almost like I can see where the money has gone, but
you don't think it was worth it.
I feel like the original that didn't have the money and did things differently because it didn't have the money came out better.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah. It was more like, Trainspotting is kind of a lot of the charm was, if it wasn't an indie film, it'd be like, it's all part of the charm that they did all these things that were really interesting, like even the toilet scene, an example being that they carved out, it was actually, because I looked up all these facts on it, and apparently it was all chocolate.
Really?
Yeah, so it wasn't as bad as it looks. But yeah, they carved out the whole toilet into the wall, and that's how Renton kind of jumped in through a hole. So it was a practical special effect, which just looked awesome.
I do love my practical special effects.
Oh, same.
I don't like that digital shit.
That digital shit, get it out of here.
Yeah, and I also, that's as far as conclusions go, like I think, you know, like Begbie, he had a good arc, and I think the way everything ended with him in the bar with all of them there, I thought that was good. You know, I thought that was more of an ending than the actual ending was. Yeah, because like that had more of an impact, and you actually cared about everyone involved, as opposed to Melania, where you just didn't really care.
But yeah, talking about the conclusion, I thought like it was interesting. I was expecting someone to die, and I was like, when Renton climbed on the roof and Begbie was after him, he's like, "It's over, Begbie. I've got the higher ground."
Oh, for fuck's sake! I was waiting for it, man. I was waiting. Fuck me.
Yeah,
I knew there was gonna be a fucking prequels joke. I knew it was gonna come.
There's no way to not have Star Wars seep in.
Yes. When we were driving home after watching this movie, we were just replacing all of Obi-Wan's lines with the Scottish version of Obi-Wan's lines. I mean, it was horrible because we don't do a good accent, but
another happy landing.
It's the thought.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of considering we'll edit all of the prequels, and we'll re-upload it, you know, and it'll be called, you know, saving the prequels, you know, the remastered, recut prequels that are really great and save Star Wars. And literally the only thing we will change is we'll overdub all of Ewan McGregor's lines so that he's Scottish.
Exactly. Star Wars fixed.
Yeah.
Boom.
And dude, people will love it, man. Everyone will agree.
It's like, yeah.
No one's going to say, no, actually, I don't think there should be a Scottish Jedi, because they would be fucking wrong. Anyone who says that is wrong, because goddamn, that would make a good Star Wars film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'd fix it. Fix the prequels. It'd do it. But yeah, it's there's only a few points that I have more to talk about, which was the soundtrack. What did you think? The soundtrack was such an important part of Trainspotting, why people kind of like remember it as well, is because it had this really indie alternative soundtrack.
Boy.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, something, boy. Something, boy.
Yeah, well, the soundtrack has pretty much every song from the first movie. Again, because this movie is very fan servicey.
Yeah, which we'll talk about. That was my second point.
Yeah. We should probably get more into the fan service stuff, because there was a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that The Prodigy did a remix of one of the songs for this.
Of Last for Life. It was cool.
I did like that. I thought that was cool. And just the fact that it was The Prodigy, I think it's kind of funny. But yeah, you know, I mean, I do like that they called back and used songs from the original, but I think they could have made more of an effort to change it up a bit. They did.
The Young Fathers are interesting because they're a real acclaimed kind of like modern British act that are actually from Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So it's they won Mercury Prize, which is a huge thing in Britain.
Yeah.
And so they're a pretty interesting act. So although I didn't really like their songs as much in the when I first heard they were picked, I was like, for the T2, I was like, I was excited because I was like, that's a great matchup. And then I don't feel it worked as well. Like, because I think it was pretty sure it was one of their songs playing during the final climax scene with the fight with Begbie, and I just felt like this it just felt a bit out of place.
Yeah, I mean, I just like, because I know they did put in, you know, different music like that, but it's not like standout, you know, like the soundtrack is such a memorable part of the first one, whereas this, it's 80% the same soundtrack, and within a couple of songs that I can't even remember. So yeah, not anything really, not bad, just not memorable or kind of different. It just obviously wasn't something that they wanted to care about, really. It's like, you know, making the memorable soundtrack. They just wanted people to get nostalgic for 20 years ago when music was good.
Music was good back in my day.
Yes.
You had bands like the Eagles, and
you had Tears for Fears.
They played real music with guitars. None of this electronic shit.
Even though all of it was like electronic in the original Trainspotting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Perfect Day. God, that was a good song.
You're an addict. So be addicted. Just be addicted to something else.
One bit of fan service that I did really love was when he falls off the car and then he smiles.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up first, actually, as well. Yeah,
I like that.
It's the things like that where it doesn't distract you from it.
Yeah,
but it's a callback. You know, like they did a few things like that in Rogue One. They also did a few things that are really shit in Rogue One. That were too obvious. Whereas there was a lot of subtle fan service. But the thing is, even if it is subtle, you can still do too much subtle fan service. And this movie was a lot of too much subtle fan service, and then there was also the not so subtle fan service, such as just playing the old movie.
Yeah, true.
Just have a watch. Hey, remember this, guys? God, that was a good film, wasn't it? We made that. Did you know? Yeah, I can't even remember a lot of the times because there was so many, and it all kind of, you know, blended together. Even like, you know, Ewan McGregor's ass is technically fan service.
Never enough of that.
No, that's true. I don't care if it's subtle. It doesn't need to be subtle. You can have as much as you want, as long as it's Ewan McGregor's ass. Whereas everything else, you really do need to be careful. You need to think about it, and I think. But again, as a feature length, it's like that's a bit much fan service. But if it was a bunch of like little short things, whether they were really fan servicey, it would just be like nice, you know?
Yeah.
And it would feel different if it were just like these nice little stories with a bunch of fan service playing back to the original. You'd be like, oh, that's really cool. Whereas in this, it kind of stood out to me as like just a bit too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was interesting that they put in like origin story flashbacks to their childhood and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was weird.
Which was just, it didn't really come together. It didn't really elaborate anything. It's like, basically the whole point of those flashbacks was to show that they became heroin addicts. We're just like, oh, cool. Thanks for letting us know. They were heroin addicts. I mean, and then they had, the soundtrack, they had Born Slippy by Underworld come in at a certain point when he was remembering the old times. And it's interesting because they're like, I feel like Danny Boyle was trying to do this self-aware thing of, hey, yeah, we know a lot of this movie is going to have to be nostalgia because you're going to have nostalgia for it.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's going to have nostalgia for this movie. So it was an interesting way of addressing it, but it's interesting. Like, fan service has just become such a huge part of everything now.
Yeah. Well, and you know, there's that one line from the film that Melania says. I want to start calling it RoboCop so it's not as racist, but then it's that's what we're doing. We're doing a callback to an old podcast, you know. We're doing what he did in the film. This is where you have full circle.
Your flashback scene, and we're like, RoboCop.
You know what? Right now, I'll just edit in the last podcast. I'll just put the whole thing in here right now. I'm like, hey, remember when we did that podcast? Man, that was crazy. Anyway, here we are now in this one.
And we just get like a sticker that says no and just slap it straight on there. I'm like, good job, us.
Yeah. So anyway, RoboCop, when she's in the room with the dudes and she starts, you know, speaking the different language so they can't understand her. And she's like, you know, all you do is, like in where I come from, we think about the future and where we're going. All you do is think about the past and live in the past when they're watching those football games.
Yeah.
And, she's like, all you guys do is live in the past as we're watching this movie that's 50% fan service of a movie that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, at least they realised what they were doing. You're like, you guys are all here, we're trying to move forward, but we're showing clips of the old Trainspotting, and everyone watching it's just like, oh, it's good. Yeah. It makes them feel warm. So it's like kind of taking a shot at the audience, a bit of, self-referential stuff there. So I did like that line. I thought that was a bit funny.
Yeah, true.
Choose the ones you love. Choose your future. Choose life.
So what's your verdict overall?
Well, I may have sounded a bit harsh on it at the start. I'm not. I don't wish they didn't do it because it was entertaining. I was entertained for 2 hours. I was just also disappointed at the end. It's very disappointing just because of maybe what it could have been and all the nostalgia, but that didn't build up to like a second thing. It just kind of brought you back to the first thing, But it is entertaining. Obviously, if you haven't seen the first one, don't watch it because you won't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing, because it's... Yeah, all the impact is like from these fan servicey things, and you'll just have no idea. So if you haven't seen the original, don't watch the new one. If you didn't like the original, don't watch the new one. Even though it is very different, again, it's playing so much on the original. It relies so heavily on the original.
This isn't going to convert you.
But if you liked it, I'd say it's worth watching. It's entertaining. It's like a little, extras afterwards. Feature length, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not a bad movie. It's entertaining. It gets the job done. It's just not standout amazing. It's not going to blow your mind, but it will make you feel a little warm inside back from, when movies were good.
We hate movies.
We hate movies. We do.
But yeah, this was funny because we came into this like saying, we had very different conflicting kind of like perspectives on it. But mine's very similar to that, but slightly more positive in that, hey, it's not, it's not as, it doesn't completely capture the magic of the original. It's not as good, super as the original, not as good. But at the same time, it's like, if you like the original and you saw it, this isn't a bad addition. I feel like it's I'll give it, if I had to give it a rating, I'd just be 7 out of 10. They accomplished what they,
Yeah.
It could have been a lot worse. They accomplished what they wanted to set out to do mostly. Not in terms of having a big conclusion or anything like that, but they accomplished in recapturing a lot of the feel and characters of the original. Not all of it, but they a certain amount to the point where I was like, yep, no, I'm satisfied. And I'm not gonna say I'm blown away or I'm that, but I'm just saying I'm satisfied with this as a companion piece.
Yeah. Well, see, I was satisfied through the movie, but when it ended, I was no longer satisfied.
Oh, right, yeah.
If just don't go into it I'm assuming, we've just spoiled the whole thing anyway, so it doesn't really matter recommending it now. But, it's just something that you can't go into expecting this big thing. You have to go into it expecting it to just be a nice callback, some really interesting cinematography, some cool scenes. You get to know where the characters have gone in 20 years, and it's interesting, it's entertaining. It's just not Trainspotting.
Yeah.
It's T2, it's not Trainspotting, but
go
watch it. Fucking why not? What better are you going to do? What are you going to do with your time if not watch the new Trainspotting? Oh, actually, that's pretty good. Second thought, don't watch it. Stay in. You know what to do. Have a good time. Thanks for listening. I love you. Goodbye.
He doesn't mean it. He's bad for you.
That doesn't mean I don't.
You can do better. You can do better, girl.
Boy.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny. Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Talking to me?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
She took a giant shit on my face. Literally.
Literally?
Not literally.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.